I confess, I did it. I murdered the floor. It was me. Please, please, just stop the torture. I can't look at any more tile samples. It's been a while since I've done a video on the progress of our home office, and the reason is right after I put these hardwood floors in, it was mid-February, and as everyone knows, this country entered a pandemic, so it's been very hard to, let alone get materials, among other things, to finish this project up. Recently, I went and I stained the floors myself, and I went out and I bought stuff from the box store, which I typically don't do. I took their recommendation and I bought a stain for the floor, and it looked awful and it destroyed the floor. I was very, very not happy with it. Now, those of you who have watched this channel in the past know I've done floors before and I've stained them and they came out just fine. And I think the reason for that is I went to a flooring company that specializes in hardwood floor and I bought the stain from them and I had no problems whatsoever. What happened this time was, as I was putting the stain down, I'd get 3 or 4 feet and the stain would dry on me. So it got blotchy, it didn't look right. Well, here are some samples of it. It looked awful. And rather than go into a whole rant of why everything went wrong, I decided to make this video about the differences between doing the finishing of a floor yourself and hiring someone to come in and do it. And the first thing I will say is that the cost isn't much different. Now, there's definitely a cost savings when it comes to putting the floors down themselves. I probably saved a little over $1,000 to $1,500 putting the floor in myself. But when it came to renting the sander, buying all the chemicals to finish the floor, to go back and forth and do multiple coats of polyurethane, I think I might never refinish a floor or finish it for the first time myself ever again. But let's take a look at the process with a pro first, and then we'll discuss it a little bit more. The whole process is going to take about 3 to 4 days. It's going to start with sanding the floors, then they're going to put the stain down, then they're going to put 3 coats of polyurethane. Obviously, the stain and polyurethane need to dry, so there's going to be some time in between those coats. What we need to do before they even get here is prepare. And there's a couple things I recommend to do. Number 1, turn off any kind of central HVAC that you might have. Any dust that kicks up can get sucked up from this room and push it all over the house. The second thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to find 220 power. They're going to come with some fairly large machines in the sanders, and they're going to need to hook up to 220. So there's a couple different options for this. Maybe you have an outlet for an air conditioner. They can plug into the one for the dryer, which is usually 220, or they can patch directly into the electrical box. Now, no matter what method you need to do, make sure they have easy access to it, and not only easy access to the source of the power, but easy access to run extension cords to the area where the flooring you're having redone is. The next step is you're going to want to find a way to ventilate the room. This process is going to be dusty at first, and then it's going to be pretty smelly with stain and polyurethane. And the polyurethane that the professionals use, in my experience, is much stronger in smell than anything you buy at the store. So to make sure the room is ventilated, you're going to want to open up a bunch of windows. Remember, you have your HVAC shut down, so you're not going to get that air circulation. And you're not going to want to open up windows or doors inside the room that you're getting sanded and refinished. And that's because dust can come in from the outdoors, and if dust comes in from the outdoors, it can stick to the polyurethane or to the staining process, and it will ruin the floor. Go ahead and open some windows on the same floor, preferably away from the room that you're getting refinished, so that air can circulate through and make it so that no dust gets introduced to the new floor that you're having being done. Now, on day 1, this is not such a big deal because they're going to come back the next day and they're going to buff it out again, and they're going to reapply another coat of polyurethane. So Not a big deal on the first day, but definitely on the final day, take that into consideration. So let's take a look at what happened after day 1. First off, the crew is probably going to come pretty early in the morning because they have a lot of sanding to do and they're going to want to get the stain done so that they can let it dry overnight. In my case, they showed up about 8 o'clock in the morning and they went right at it sanding the floors, and when it was done, the floors were smooth. Here's a quick look at what the floors looked like after they were sanded. Now, once the sanding was done, they went right to mixing the stain and doing their best to try to match it to the existing floors. Now, this is not an easy process because stain changes as it sets into the floor, and it also changes as the polyurethane not only goes on with each layer, but over time as the polyurethane starts to take on a warmer color. So these floors will be a living entity for a while, and hopefully when a few months pass by, they'll match pretty closely to the floors that are here. Now, this is what it looked like at the end of day 1, and it looked really good. It was much better than this mess that I did. So, shows that with the right stuff and the right talent, you can do things very quickly and make them look very good. Now, this is not to say that you can't do this on your own, but remember the point of this video was to show what the differences are and whether or not it's actually worth it to do it yourself. So at the end of day 1, I can tell you this. It went really quickly. They came with a large crew. The sanding went fast. I did not have to carry stuff up the steps, especially those heavy machines. So right off the bat, I am still going towards the win for don't do this project yourself, even though you can, and you can make it look really well. But we'll see how tomorrow goes. Right now, I will say the smell in here is not too bad. The stain really is kind of dissipating pretty quickly, any kind of scent that's coming from that. So I didn't have to worry about too much about coming back into the house and staying here tonight. We'll see how it goes with the polyurethane, which is a much more stinkier substance. So let's take a look at what happens on day 2. Okay, day 2, the crew came this morning. It was the same 2 guys that had sanded the floors. Yesterday's crew was a little bit bigger because another 3 guys came to mix the stain later in the day. But now we have 2 guys here. They've gone through, they've buffed down the stain on the floor. They've gone through with heavy duty vacuums, which is really nice. They did this yesterday. It cleaned up really quickly. They got all the dust out of the house. And I also forgot to mention in day 1, it was hard to get any video of what they were actually doing because they basically plasticed off the whole room. You couldn't see in, you couldn't see out, kept all the dust in, and when they were done, they took it down and everything was super clean and ready to go. So, day 2, all they did this morning was buff the floors and then very neatly put down the first coat of polyurethane. Now, where the stain didn't smell so bad, the polyurethane reeks. It's all through the house. I'm really happy I didn't have the HVAC system on, otherwise this smell would be all over the place. I'm hoping it dissipates by tonight, but I'll let you know in tomorrow's update on day 3 whether I was actually able to stay here overnight. So it is day 3, and we were able to stay here last night, but I will tell you this. The smell was really bad. With all the windows open, it stayed. We were lucky though in that it did not stay on the top floors very well. It seemed to just sink to the bottom of the floors. It was a very heavy odor. So it went straight down, made the first floor almost unlivable, but the upstairs floors were okay. So we were able to keep the windows open. We were able to stay here tonight. But if you have someone like this guy running around, you may want to think about whether or not you actually want to stay, because the smell is pretty bad with these oil-based polyurethanes. So for day 3, they're pretty much doing the same exact thing. They're coming in and they are rebuffing the floors to get any kind of inconsistencies from the first coat of polyurethane out, and then they are going to put a second coat down. So we're ready for the same stinky smell overnight, and hopefully again we'll be able to open all the windows. Luckily it's not too hot outside, and we'll be able to stay here again tonight. But I'll let you know again when I update you on what will hopefully be the fourth and final day tomorrow. Today's final day. The guys just got here, so they're about to get to work. And there's nothing really different than the last day that they're going to do. They're just going to put the final coat of polyurethane down. So with the magic of video, we will skip ahead till this is dry, and let's take a look at what the final floor looked like. Well, the floor is done, and I don't think there's any doubt that it looks pretty fantastic. So we were expecting that. We didn't think that a professional would screw up the floor, even though, you know, like I did. The question really was, is it worth hiring someone versus doing it yourself? And here's the math and how it adds up. So when I did the floors myself, to buy high quality stain and rent the sander and the buffer and everything for the multiple days, it cost about $400. To have this professionally refinished cost between $3 and $4 a square foot. So for this whole room, which is a little bit over 200 square feet, the total price was $750. Now, of course, if you have a larger area, that economy of scale comes in because obviously they can sand further, and each day they do more work and they don't have to go back and forth. So you might even be able to get that price down. I think the answer is it is not worth restaining your floors and finishing them yourself, because when you look at the cost, as long as you have a good professional that knows what they're doing, the materials for me were about half the price of having the whole thing done, and that's not counting the hours and hours of my time, plus the cleanup, plus the mess of everything, the exposure to the chemicals. Undoubtedly that if I did floors again, I would put the floors down myself, but I would hire someone else to come finish them. Now, with the professional refinishing, are there little imperfections in the floor that maybe I thought I could do better myself? There are a couple, but you know what? It is better than what I did in the first place, and with all the other good stuff in there, I think I'm very happy with what's done. Now, that said, there was one thing that they did not do. They did not trowel fill the floors after they resanded it. I wasn't too concerned because I had trowel filled all the gaps in the wood and any kind of nail holes really good before I went and did the first round of staining. So that held really well, and I wasn't concerned. There's no gaps in this floor. There's nothing problematic about it. Now, if you're doing this yourself and you're hiring someone else out, I'd ask them whether or not they're going to go ahead and fill this, because that may add additional cost. And if you have gaps in wood, you know, it's not always perfectly straight. Some gaps are unavoidable. You really do need to put that filler down so that everything looks smooth and finished. So with all that said, this floor is done, as is this video. So if you like content like this and would like to see more, please subscribe to our page and give us a like if you found this useful. So until next time, good luck with your flooring, and we hope to see you soon on our next project. For day 3, they're pretty much doing the same thing they did yesterday. They're coming in, they're rebuffing, yeah.